Welcome to the You Are More podcast. I'm Blaine Ledbetter.
And I'm Laken Stewart. If you're looking for an authentic community that shares the truth of the gospel and the truth about life, you've come to the right place.
We believe that you are more. You're more than motherhood, more than your ministry, and more than your career. Grab a cup of coffee and listen in to hear the truth about what it means to find your identity in Christ through every season of life.
Welcome to the You Are More podcast.
Okay, welcome back to You Are More podcast. We are so glad that you've made it this far with us. If you have missed any of our episodes, we up until this point have talked through why we got started as You Are More, the heart behind our mission. What else? We've talked about motherhood, just some struggles that we've gone through, but then also some great advice that we have received. And then also we've talked through careers, and here we are today. So we are going to talk through.
We also talked about ministry and what that is and what that looks like in our lives.
Yes, I forgot that one. That one was the most recent, but man, we have loved y'all's feedback so far.
Yeah,
it's been so encouraging.
Great. Yeah. A few of you have said it's like listening and getting a warm hug, and that's just so fun because Blaine and I both, speaking of boundaries, today we're going to be talking about boundaries. Blaine and I both not hate, that's a strong word, maybe like strongly dislike physical
don't prefer
prefer. We're not like the hugging type. So if you ever see Blaine and I hugging it out, there is something seriously wrong.
I know. I really care about you or love you or know that if I have to sacrifice. Yes. But I told her it was so ironic. I said, Laken, like 2 people at least have told me it feels like you're giving me a hug. And I'm like I don't. And people who know me so well. Yes. I'm like, they know I don't like to hug. So if I can hug you through a podcast,
that's the best case scenario. I know.
So anyways, today, boundaries. We are
such a heavy topic.
Gosh, yes.
We're going to try to keep it light, but no promises here.
Yes. I would say, honestly, I don't know about you, Laken, but like the past 2 years, I've really realized the need for boundaries.
Yeah.
Especially when they're abused or ignored. And so oftentimes boundaries are tough.
They're so hard.
They are. And if you've set them up, you know that once you do that, it can seem like you're trying to hurt the person that you're setting the boundaries with, but it's really not. It's not meant to hurt anyone. No. It is really there to protect you. And I mean, I don't know if you'd agree, but like, I mean, even Jesus had boundaries because
he would go away and pray. And
and I think we don't talk about that enough, maybe in the church, of good healthy boundaries. Not just like, I'm closing everyone off, never going to talk to anyone, never going to open up, I'm never going to budge. So that just had that quick thought. But anyways, Laken, do you want to take it away? Do you want to talk through some?
I think establishing healthy boundaries for, as a mom or as just a woman in general who is living and has a life and has relationships, and setting boundaries within those relationships is really important because you want to be, true to yourself and true to who God has made you to be. And setting boundaries can be really daunting and hard because you're having to, put yourself in a situation where most likely a hard conversation is going to have to happen at some point. And conflict and hard conversations they're just that. They're hard and don't want to have them, but they're so, so, so necessary for just vital relationship growth and healing in hard circumstances, and setting boundaries for you, your family, your spouse, your kids, all of those things is just so, so important. And I don't know, establishing boundaries, in the 3 areas that we have kind of camped ourselves in, Blaine, of motherhood, ministry, and career. I think each of those areas looks really different when it comes to setting boundaries. When it comes to motherhood, and we've kind of mentioned this on our previous episode, talking solely about motherhood, like you are your child's biggest advocate, and setting boundaries for your children, that are agreed upon between you and your spouse. That's one thing that I think is super important is, unity between, you and your spouse or your co-parent. If you're, divorced and still parenting together, those things are super important, that you agree upon the boundaries in which you're setting, with that, with friends and family and whomever. And I think some of those boundaries, that we've just established over the years is that, like just a simple one, like for Christmas, we will always spend Christmas as our family unit, Christmas Day, Christmas morning. That's just a boundary that we've set, and
that's
something
true.
that is healthy for our family. And that's just like a small example, of a boundary that is set. That, honestly, when we had to tell our extended family, like, hey, we're not going to travel for Christmas, like we're going to stay home and stay as a family, like that's hard to do. And it's things as small as a Christmas morning with your family, can be hard conversations. And so those are just like, that's a little bit of an example of, how we've set a boundary, in motherhood. But that also, it extends far beyond like the holidays, or, it extends to like health decisions for your family, what that looks like for your kids, and being an advocate for them, and how relationships with grandparents are, and what that looks like for your individual kids. And really communicating effectively well with your spouse, what the boundaries should be, and how you're communicating them with others is just vital and so important to just a healthy relationship with your spouse, your extended family, your kids, all of those things. So Blaine, I don't know if you have, what are some boundaries that you've set within motherhood that have really helped? I gave an example of like the Christmas one, but is there another one that you might have?
Something that's coming to mind right now is just, and my husband and I set this before our kids were even at the age that they do this, is we don't do sleepovers. And one time, twice, our kids have gone to their cousins, and then their cousins have stayed here. So that was really the only exception, but I'm as close as can be with my sister-in-law. And so that was different, but it's just kind of let's just make that that healthy boundary, we hope, across the board. We're trying to think proactively. There's a lot of things that happen at other people's houses that maybe is not maybe what we want our kids to be around, but also just not we just I know that
we were growing up, like
the things that I saw and heard, and it wasn't even like even as a young child, it wasn't like we were like sneaking out and getting crazy, but it was just
there's no control over, what your kids are exposed to. And, if you let your kids sleep over, that's great for you and your family, but
that's your decision. And that is what you have a piece about. And so I'm not here to judge. That is just what we've personally done. What's some other things? We don't, we're setting the rule, we'll be waiting till middle school for phones. And I realize there are kids,
5-year-olds with
son's
iPhones.
age, that have phones, and good for you. That is your personal decision, and that is no judgment to you. But again, that's just something that we've decided on. Just with the statistics that say, most kids are exposed to pornography at by the age of 8.
Gosh, it's just horrifying.
And my son's not far from that, and so that's why I'm just like, again, I can't protect him forever, but if we can establish some boundaries now, And so again, that's not meant to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
That is just personally for our family. And what are some other things in motherhood? I'm trying to think.
I think there can be boundaries really in every aspect of motherhood, from like what you feed your children to when you put them to bed to, I think bedtime for us for a while was a big boundary. We would try to stick to a solid bedtime. And now it's just totally crazy all over the place with 2 toddlers. But that was something that we held like sacred mainly for our marriage, because that was time that we had together and our kids were in bed and we were able to connect in that way. And it kind of looks different now as our kids are a little older and a little crazy. But,
I felt that.
Yeah, it's something like it was 7 o'clock. They were in bed. It doesn't matter what time they got up for nap. Didn't matter what we had going on. You know, if we had friends coming over, they would be in bed. And that's just something that we said. And that looks different now than it did a year ago. But even still, like, it's something that we hold sacred is bedtime.
I am so there with you. I love an early bedtime because I'm like, I need a break from you, and you're not going to stay up till 10 o'clock because I can't either.
No, and it doesn't matter what time we put our kids to bed. They are up at like 6 o'clock every single morning. And so I'm like, if you're up at 6 o'clock, you go into bed at 6 o'clock, because I just can't even.
You get 12 hours of awake
12 hours.
Or, you know, during the day.
During the day.
Something else that I was thinking about too is just like, for us, so currently our kids are not really doing any activities, and we've kind of, it's not even a rule, and our kids, I don't know that they'll ever, you know, pursue sports like this, but like just making a priority to be at church on Sunday. But also, if there's too much going on and our family is pulled in 37 different directions,
and this is where ministry comes in here.
Yes, a boundary that we've set is that like our family is a priority, and we're not, I just, staying busy all the time gives me, it's stressful. I mean, it really is. I don't know how people run
themselves ragged
of survival. I mean, like, I do feel like I'm just coming out of the survival mode, but like even this year, if our kids had played an activity or done a sport or something like that, just thinking like, okay, only one per kid. You know, financially, that's probably all that we can do either way, but really just looking at how the schedule's lined up. I know this past like baseball season, there were a couple nights that both kids played on the same night at the same time. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do.
You just want to split yourself in half.
Yes. But, and another thing too, we do like family worship on Sunday nights, because we don't have Sunday night services. And so my husband's rule is, don't miss more than once, or only, it's okay to like miss, because there are sometimes that we're out on Sunday nights, just maybe randomly, but we're not going to miss 2 weeks in a row. And so that establishes a healthy rhythm, but it's a good boundary. And I've even seen some parents of older children, like we're talking high school and college, but they're like, you can do whatever you want through the week. Like, I know you're going to be busy, but you're going to be home for Sunday night dinner because we're going to eat together as a family. And so just like really protecting that, you know, no phones at the table, so that we're fully present. Because I see such a value in sharing a meal together,
eating together.
Yes, it's huge. I
grew up doing
didn't
that.
Get to do that. And I did not. And so that's why I'm such like, it's crazy to see you grew up doing it. So you want to do that with your kids, but I did not. And so I'm like, I really want to do that with my kids. So anyways, so you briefly mentioned it, but let's switch. What about
to ministry?
Some good boundaries in ministry.
I think it really any boundary that you set in your life, like whether that be with your kids or your spouse or your family or whatever, it really bleeds into every other part of your life. So like if you have a boundary and your kids are in bed at 7 o'clock, that kind of affects like the way you parent, the way you do ministry, and the way you work. I think some ministry and our spouse is working in ministry, and, you know, by default, we are also working in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries do become really blurred, and just what that looks like as a pastor who is on call 24/7 at the drop of a hat will go and, you know, be with a family whose, you know, father is dying, or someone who got in a car accident, or someone who's just really struggling. And we kind of have to build in time that exists for those moments to happen. So that means, you know, setting boundaries on after 4 o'clock, unless it's like an emergency. My husband is not going to pick up his phone. Like, he is all in with the kids, either letting me work or letting me cook dinner, or, you know, doing things outside with the kids, and just taking that time to be together as a family at the end of every day is what makes us function, or else we wouldn't. And, you know, there are times that, you know, someone will call and it's an absolute emergency and he has to go. And that's what that time is meant for. But also having the boundary established of he's most likely away from his phone, you know, after 4 o'clock when he gets home from work. And that's just how it kind of operates for us. And Saturdays are our family day. So like nothing impedes on a Saturday. I generally work on Fridays, and so he's with the kids a good bit, but on Saturdays it is like we get up, we go to the coffee shop, do the farmer's market, play at the park. We just do fun things as a family, and rarely ever does that get interrupted. There's been a few Saturdays where, you know, he's had to officiate a funeral or a wedding, or something has come up, but again, it's like we build that time in during the week so that if something does come up on a weekend, we know that, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of set those boundaries in that way. But what does that look like?
We work hard, play hard, but then we rest hard. And so Sabbath is huge for us.
Yep.
You know, in order to have a good Sabbath for us, we have to have really good boundaries. And so for me personally, it's almost Friday night at sundown. So almost, you know, Friday night at sundown until Saturday evening. Because at that point, then we're transitioning into, okay, what have we got to prep for tomorrow morning for church?
Yeah.
But Saturdays are we wake up and we try not to plan anything. You know, this tomorrow in particular, I do have some things to do at the church, but it's more of a ministry. I'm not employed by the church, but don't expect my husband to be there to help because he works, and I don't think people realize that like Sundays are technically a work day. And so
they have off on Fridays.
And so Saturdays too for us. And so unless it's just something that, I mean, we'll do birthday parties, but, you know, as far as planning something for the church to do something on a Saturday, even like a Friday, we're just, it's hard to say no when you know it's something that like you do want to do, but at the same time, it's like, we've got to rest. I finished the housework before then. We have set that up to where it's like, we're not going to work on anything. I have heard before, if you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind, and if you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. And so on Saturdays, sometimes rest, you know, I know that for
rest is different for everybody.
It is. And so like, we're going to go out and we may build something or work on something around the house, but it's fun to do. It's re-energizing. It's, I don't know. It gives us life. And so
being your Enneagram 7, like having
I'm always
interaction,
get out.
Getting out and doing something.
But also, because I feel like we crash after Sunday afternoon. So I'm like, there's plenty of resting, actual literal resting going on during the weekend. But that's what it's looked like. And also, you know, reminding myself that just because my husband is on staff at a church does not mean that I have to attend every event that goes on at the church.
Yes. Setting boundaries for like yourself personally.
Yep.
Like, for example, my husband preached at another church's revival service last night, and I didn't go. I had another friend over. We watched a movie.
Good. Really good. Fun. That's awesome.
And it was just one of those things where like I could wrangle the kids past their bedtime and go, but he just looked at me and was like, Laken, you've seen me preach over 1,000 times. You don't have to come to this one. And I was like, thank you for telling me that, because I didn't, because I needed someone to tell me, like, you know, you don't have to go to everything. You don't have to be involved in every single aspect of your husband's ministry, because it is his vocation and job, and we have our own jobs and different things that we do.
He, because of the size of the staff at our church, oftentimes not every staff member will even be at every event,
present at
and
every
that's
event.
Okay. There's plenty to go around.
Yep, I know.
So just that's another thing that we have to, if it doesn't fit in our schedule, like
giving yourself
something that he's obligated.
Giving yourself permission to say, hey, we just can't right now. Like, and there've been some times when that has happened. Like over this summer, our church partnered with another church for their VBS, and the pastor of that other church was like, you guys drop your kids off and go on a date. And so we just did that, and just felt like
awesome.
That was something that we were so glad that we did, because we were able to invest like in our marriage and set that boundary for ourselves and just have a good time. And
that's so awesome.
it's setting boundaries in ministry can be hard, because everyone kind of expects the world of you, especially like the position we're in now, where Cody is the sole staff pastor person. Like he has a secretary, and he's like the sole staff member of our church. And so that's about to radically be different. He's about to be on a staff of like 20 at a larger church. And so our life boundaries will definitely change over the next month. But it's different. Ministry is just a different beast of trying to set boundaries and have everyone know where you're at and communicating them well. I think you can set boundaries all day long, but if you don't communicate them well and communicate your expectations of others, like that's where there's going to be like a fallout of some sort, like
frustration, anger,
you have to communicate them. And I've definitely learned my lesson in that, and not communicating boundaries effectively, and getting my feelings hurt and another person's feelings hurt. It's just not a great thing. How have you, Blaine, shifting gears just a little bit, I feel like you are the queen of this.
I hope so. I don't know.
I feel like you're the queen bee of setting boundaries with work-life balance. What does that look like on a day-to-day for you?
So working remotely is so interesting.
So interesting. I agree.
It is. There are some people who can't work remotely. They need that in-person interaction. I had a friend that was like, I can't work remotely. Like, we don't know anybody in this town. I really need a job in person so that we can meet people and meet couples. We're a young married couple. And I was like, I get that. Right now, what I need in this season is, to stay home. And so that has been a huge adjustment. So boundaries with career is, and I'm thankful for a company that really emphasizes life work balance, and not just work comes first life, and then your life is in the margin. So for us personally, because my kids are both in school part-time and full-time, just in various like childcare situations, I have had to set working hours, and I'm just as if I were working part-time in a retail store or in an office building. I have part-time daytime hours, and outside of that, I've just
turning it off.
Couldn't do it.
I mean, because
like there are several nights a week that I'm like, you know what, the kids are fine, and or they're going to bed, like they're in bed, or my husband's watching a baseball game. I can run upstairs and get some work done. And then I have to stop myself and say, you can, but should you?
Should you? Yeah. Should you? It might help you tomorrow, but it also might not,
Exactly. Same with working super early mornings. I'm like, I can do that. And I will if I know my day is going to be crazy and I won't be able to be around the computer.
But what's the cost benefit analysis of like waking up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning?
Yes.
It's, to me, by 2 o'clock, I'm like dead. That
doesn't seriously. And that's why I know I'm not my best self.
Oh yeah.
When I woke up. So, another thing too, it was funny. Another coworker and I were talking the other day. I have recently stepped out of a role that I was doing and have had to, remind people often that I don't do that.
I don't do this anymore. Yeah.
And so there have been lots of times that I have had this task to do for myself. And I think, I could do that. I mean, that was my old position.
But you could also assign it to somebody else.
Yeah. It is literally not my job anymore.
Yeah.
I'm used in emergency situations at this point, which like never happens now.
Yeah.
And then also just lovingly telling people like, hey, I don't do that anymore. You can reassign it to this person.
Yeah.
So, because, that is where boundaries can get abused. And so in work, in life, friendships, in career, motherhood, family, all whatever.
Yeah.
The abuse of the boundaries, again, it's like, oh, well, they can do it. Just throw it on to their plate.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they've got time. They don't work. They don't have kids. They're not married. They can do that. Yeah. Just put it on their plate.
They have all the time in the world. Yeah.
That's not healthy. That is disrespectful. I think that's what I hear though the most often is that like people just assume that they should be open, not protecting their emotions or boundaries or anything. They should just.
Makes me so sad. Yeah.
I know. And I hear it and I'm like, you have to say no. You have to protect.
If you don't say no to emotions, something, you will literally break. And I know that burnout, bitterness. I've had it. I've experienced the break of just being the yes man or yes woman all the time. And it's just not a fun place to be.
It's not. You're struggling. There's plenty of ways to make margin in your life so that you can say yes when you're like, okay, I know this is a boundary, but at this season in my life, this week, I can do this and know that I have the capacity to.
Yeah.
But boundaries are there to protect you when that's just not the case. When you have to say no or have to, say, I can't do that. I can't babysit this person or I can't help you out with this because I just don't have any more room on my plate and I need to chill out. Like,
yeah. And you have to be okay with not giving like, I can't do this because like, it's okay to say no just to say no. Like you don't have to give an explanation. No is a complete sentence.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that should be like tattooed on everyone. But it is.
Yeah.
And I think we think, oh, well, if I say no, or if I tell them I can't do this for them, like they'll be so upset and angry.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
There have oftentimes been that I've asked somebody to do something and they're like, I cannot do that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And just move on. Like, then maybe they were scared that I was going to be upset that they told me no. And I didn't think twice about it. I was like, okay, I just want to, thanks. So I think, I think when people don't respect your boundaries and don't understand why you have made the boundaries or have, set this schedule, this life work balance, or maybe even this family life work balance, whatever, it can definitely lead to some hurt feelings, but just explaining to them like, I did not do this to hurt you. I did it because our family needs it in this season. Or like, I am also trying to protect you because you can't do everything. And so I don't want you to think that you have to. So anyways, that's, for career, I try to, back to what you're asking, just I have work hours and I have limitations, and knowing that I can't do everything, even if I may know how to do it, I have limits. And I have seen that the more that I say yes to things that I really don't want to do, that are way outside the boundaries that I've set, the more anxious and bitter and stressed and just
I feel
it's just
that.
not good.
When it comes to work, I like to use what me and another friend call the urgent important matrix of categorizing, work. And you can use this, with any aspect of life, of what is most urgent and most important. And those are the things you do first. And everything else kind of falls in line. So you can either tackle your non-urgent important tasks or your urgent non-important tasks. And then most of the time your non-urgent, not important tasks will never get done because they're just not urgent and not important. But I think there needs to be, when you set boundaries, it allows you the margin to complete the tasks in the order you need to complete them. And, allows you to get to those not important, not urgent tasks because you've created the margin, of setting those boundaries up. And that's one way that I kind of just operate functionally in my job, is just making sure that, my tasks lists are in the order that they need to be in, and that I'm doing things in the right order. Because if I didn't do them in the right order, I would feel super scattered and, not great at my job. But keeping boundaries within, motherhood, ministry, your career, with family, with your kids, like, it's just something that is really hard, but also super necessary for just vital life functioning. Like, it's just no way else to put it.
I know that even in friendships, they're just, even, especially in the past couple of years, I've had to put boundaries and remind myself, you don't have to shoulder this. Like, we can bear each other's burdens. Like, I will grieve with you, lament, pray for this situation. But a healthy boundary is that I don't think that it's my job to fix it, and realize that, like, until you want help yourself out of this, until you want to get yourself out of this situation, or until you want help to remedy whatever tension is going on, I can't do anything.
You can only do much. You can only pray,
So I'm like, my boundary is that I love you, but maybe from afar. And I
which
just,
is so hard too.
Like, it is.
It's really hard. Yeah.
So that was another one I wanted to mention for just a friendship aspect,
life in
of
general.
it.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts about boundaries?
I don't know. I think it's kind of definitely a surface level conversation on boundaries, but I do think, if I had to summarize it into like 3 takeaways, it would be to set boundaries, keep boundaries, and explain your boundaries. Of just, decide, with you or your spouse or whoever you live with, what your boundaries are, stick to them. Like, don't flake on your boundaries because you set them up for a reason, and then communicate them really well. I think those are 3 things that are definitely needed just in every aspect of life, whether you're a mom or you're in ministry or you have a job, and everyone hopefully has friends, and those at least will have to be communicated there too. So those are, I think, the three big points from our conversation today.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for listening to You Are More this week. Again, if you've missed any episodes, go back and listen to those. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, just everywhere, wherever you listen to podcasts. So we are so glad that you've supported us thus far, and we'll be back next week.
See ya.